All right, cool. Thanks, bro. Really appreciate it, and super excited about this conversation we're about to have, Edward. And before we jump in, let's do some quick intros. And so, for those of you out there who don't know me, my name is Kerel Cooper. I'm currently the CMO at LiveIntent. And if you're unfamiliar with LiveIntent, we are a marketing technology platform that is powered by the email address where we provide monetization and advertising solutions for publishers and brands to help them acquire, retain, and monetize their audience. I am also the co-founder and co-host of Minority Report podcast, where we highlight people of color, women, and LGBTQ plus leaders within business, media, and tech. And Edward, I'll pass it over to you. Do a quick intro.
Yes, hi, my name is Edward Bourelly. I am a VP of Marketing with Planet Fitness. I've been in marketing and advertising close to 25 years, so showing my age here, but I've worked for a number of brands, including Nike, New Era, Levi's, Home Depot, and I've also been on the agency side, working with McDonald's, Taco Bell. So either I can't keep a job, or I've worked for a lot of great brands. I'm gonna say I worked for a lot of great brands. So
you're in high demand. Let's go with that.
That's the way things run nowadays. So
there it is. There it is. Yeah. All right. So let's talk multicultural marketing. And I want to start with maybe level setting on what does multicultural marketing actually mean, because I feel like at times the phrase, the wording gets tossed around a lot, especially in conversations related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so maybe not everyone understands what multicultural marketing is. So give us your definition. How do you define it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, multicultural marketing to me, it really starts with the brand understanding that they have a diverse consumer set. That's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
That each one of those consumers are equally important to them, and understanding the nuances of those consumers and how can they engage them in a meaningful and authentic way. I mean, that's multicultural marketing in a nutshell. And it's not just about putting people of different races and ethnicities, age and gender in your creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, understanding the nuances of engagement and how important that is. So
Gotcha. And I also feel like at times maybe when teams are putting together their marketing plans, right? There's the marketing plan, and then there's multicultural marketing, right? And I want to get your thoughts on that, because personally, to me, multicultural marketing is the marketing plan.
yeah.
And I as someone who's worked for all these brands in the past, how does multicultural marketing fit into sort of the overall plan?
You hit it around the head. I mean, that is the plan. It should be your plan. It used to be, a very siloed approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're talking to Black people one way, you're talking to Hispanics another way, and then there's this general consumer market set, right? And that worked too, and it still does work on a lot of levels. But really, we've evolved so much, and it's really about, projecting diversity, projecting what the world really is. And it's not just to target people with different backgrounds and different ethnicities, et cetera. It's people want to see that. People want to see diversity on the screens. They want to see people different than themselves, and that's important. That's the most important thing. So.
Yeah. And speaking about, you talked about sort of that evolution of marketing. I think consumers have evolved as well too, right? I feel one of the trends we've seen over the last, I'll just say, 15 to 18 months, right, is consumers really investing in brands, buying products that align with their values, with their beliefs, as you said, seeing themselves in an authentic way, right? On top of that, Edward, right? What are some other benefits to multicultural marketing?
I mean, really, I mean, to me, the biggest benefit is you hit it right on the head. It's about the consumer being able to see themselves being a part of a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And that drives empathy and it drives connectivity. And, if your brand's able to do that, that's the most powerful thing in this arsenal, is to connect with people that in a meaningful way, and connecting with people at the right time, the right place, the right moment, that
Mm-hmm.
people want to see, and how your brand is interacting. So I think the biggest wake-up call for brands in particular really was the Black Panther movie, right? It was, people were blown away that a movie with a fully Black cast, appealed to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People wanted to see it, and people wanted to understand the perspective there, and it's really changed everything now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And companies have embraced that and are realizing that it's not just about targeting people with different backgrounds; it's targeting everyone by
Right, right.
showing diversity. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
And so you mentioned Black Panther did a great job, right? You mentioned the fact that, as a brand, you want to be authentic, but at the same time, we still see brands out there making so many mistakes, right? Like, what? Why does this keep happening? And what do we got to do to fix it? Like,
Yeah.
why does it keep happening?
It keeps happening. It's okay to make mistakes. First of all, it's going to cost you, but are you learning from those mistakes? The reason why I think it really happens is some of these brands still don't have a diverse team and
Mm,
diverse leadership. And it's not just about diversity; it's creating the environment where it's truly inclusive and people feel valued. If you have a diverse team and you're truly listening to people, and listening and creating the environment where people can express their perspectives, you know, you shouldn't be making these mistakes.
mm.
You shouldn't, and a lot of time you have this trickle down structure for some of these companies, and that's why this is happening. People at the top making decisions aren't listening, and aren't open to engaging folks in the right way. So,
Gotcha. All right. So more listening, engaging folks in the right way, and building out diverse teams.
yes,
And and with that said, you mentioned at the beginning you've worked for some really awesome brands throughout your career, Nike, New Era, now Planet Fitness. Through your lens, through the lens of being a Black man in marketing in the space, what has your multicultural marketing experience been like?
it it's been a whirlwind. I mean, like I said, I started my career in the late '90s, and just thinking about how our society has changed, and
Hmm.
how, we're having a lot of uncomfortable conversations now. It's just been an incredible journey, but it's been also a difficult one because, when people see a Black marketer, they think I just understand marketing to Black people, or, people don't understand that, I have a unique perspective on just consumers and people in general, and how that should be valued within organizations. I do have to say a lot of the companies that are doing it right, still have a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest part, especially internally. And who's creating these campaigns, who's coming up with these ideas, who's evolving the organization. So we've come a long way, brother, I have to say,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the late '90s to today, and I'm excited to see where we're going to continue evolving, so but we still have a lot of work to do. Once we stop working, then we're not evolving, and we got a lot to do.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I want to stay on that topic for a second because you talked about being you know, a black man that's a marketer and in a way sort of put in a box by some folks, right?
Yeah.
How do you break out of that? How do you break out of that box?
It's tough. It's tough, and
Yeah.
I don't think there is a handbook I can give to somebody to do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
But it's really, understanding different consumers and showing that you know that and that you're able to market to different people, different backgrounds. And it really, you break out of that box by starting with humility. I mean, you're really being humble and saying, I don't know. And
Yeah.
then as you build from that, you begin to develop an expertise on how to talk and reach people. I mean, when I worked for Levi's, our number one target was working moms. So, I'm not a mom. I'm working, but I'm not a mom. And it really started with me saying I need to understand, what are the nuances of being a working mom. Talk to working moms and
Yeah.
listen, and being able to take what I'm learning and applying it to strategy and bringing that to life. And then even how moms are shopping. I mean, just really starting with saying, I don't know what I'm talking about here or understanding. Let me listen and learn, and
Yeah.
a lot of people have difficulty doing that, and they shouldn't. Having humility and saying, I don't know, is not that you don't have great knowledge. That means that you put yourself in a position to ask, what else is there?
Is there? Yeah. Yeah.
And being open to listening and learning.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. We got some great questions flying in from the audience. So I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I want to
Okay.
get to the audience questions because they're definitely interested in hearing more from you about their, you know, questions that they have. What advice would you give for approaching multicultural marketing? I mean, I think you've already given some advice about sort of listening internally, developing diverse teams. Anything else you would add to that, Edward, before we get to the audience questions?
I think, you got to be blunt, to
Hmm.
the organization, and be fearless. And I can't say I've been that my whole career, and I still have some today. But I think, being able to put something out there about the consumers, what's happening in the marketplace, and making sure that you're creating an environment that's not necessarily just uncomfortable, but uncomfortable in a good way. That people are continuously listening and learning. Just make sure you're nurturing that environment and being a part of that environment in a way that you got to put your fears aside. So that's
Yeah.
my big advice.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Ready for some audience questions?
I am. I wore my Stevie Wonder shirt today too. So imagine viewing the world through his eye, through his perception.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right. First question. What challenges is Planet Fitness encountering when working to connect with diverse audiences? Conversely, what's working well?
Well, I think Planet Fitness has a unique advantage, right? This brand was founded on being inclusive. I mean, the first
Hmm.
thing you see when you walk into one of our gyms is we're the judgment-free zone, you know, and inclusion is very important in our industry in particular. And I've learned, it's not just about different cultures. Then you have other things you can layer onto that. Age, body types, all kinds of things that keep people from working out and stepping foot in the gym. you know so we have the unique advantage in our brand was founded on inclusion and having a welcoming environment for everyone. But then we have a co-mingled structure where obviously we have our corporate team, but we have franchisees and people that are on a very hyper local level, engaging with their communities, and our brand is going into places where other competitors aren't going, from urban parts of the city to the most rural areas, and that gives us a unique perspective, and it gives us a lot of ownership on a local level to really bring the brand to life.
Okay, love it. This next question, I feel like you may have answered this one a little bit here in your last answer, but when it comes to communicating with your consumers, how do you think about brand purpose, and how does that impact your approach to marketing?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking about this earlier today. It goes back to the values that you put in place, as a company. It blows my mind when I find out companies don't have values. And that's not front and center. And not only do they not have values, it's not democratized throughout the organization, where every decision that's made should go back to those values. If you do that, you're not making a mistake. You're not doing something wrong, because marketing to greeting somebody coming into a club, should be rooted in what the organization sets as values, and that's extremely important. If any of you guys are working for brands that don't have that yet, stop everything and develop them now. Not just about what the organization is or is not right now, but what you aspire to be, too. So.
Yeah, even as a B2B marketer, I mean, having those values within your organization, extremely important. You're absolutely right. It's not only about having them, but making sure that throughout your organization, you actually have the discipline to carry them out in every single thing that you do, from teaching the new hires that come in through the door, to planning out your OKRs, to how you're executing on marketing, sales, product. It all starts with those values. I couldn't agree with you more.
And everyone within your organization should know them. I mean, it should be front and center no matter what anyone is doing. If people that work for your brand don't know what the values are, then what's driving them? How are they making decisions? Overall. So that's very important to and to keep evolving. To keep evolving. So
yeah, you should be looking at the values. You're right. And on a regular basis, even checking your performance up against the values, and then to your point, the evolution of them. It's okay to sit down once a year and say, do these values still make sense for where we're going? Yeah.
And just think about all the brands that had to do that recently. I mean, we are in the midst of the biggest civil rights movement since the 60s, right? And a lot of brands found themselves on the outside, looking on the outside of the conversation and asking, how do we deal with this? What are we supposed to do? And they had to evolve very quickly, to not only project themselves in a different way, but to restructure even how they work and how what their teams look like. I mean, this is a time for change right now. So, and it's keeping people on their toes like never before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, another question here, and to those out there listening, the questions are great, so please do keep them coming if you have more. Next question: how do you define purpose-driven marketing, and how are you bringing it to life?
Yeah. I mean, you define that, like I just mentioned before, and I wrote an article on this in Forbes. I mean, you define it as really going back to your values, and then your marketing projecting that, your brand elements projecting that, even down to a logo, even down to the font that you're using. I mean, you should be projecting your purpose and values everywhere, and it should be very clear that the consumer knows what you stand for. So any marketing you're doing the purpose should be front and center.
Gotcha. Okay. Next question here. How do you promote authenticity within your purpose-driven marketing strategies? I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of the questions
yeah,
are somewhat aligned, but yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I mean, authenticity, goes back to empathy, right? Is, you know, understanding what something really means to somebody,
Hmm.
and putting yourself in their shoes, and bringing that to life in a creative way, in your brand voice. But it goes back to empathy. It goes back to connecting, and then and understanding the elements of that connection, and bringing it to life. So a lot of brands struggle with this. A lot of brands have a lot of resources, a lot of budget, but a lot of brilliant people working for them. But it's really understanding people. That's the tough part. I find a lot of brands struggle with, and how to talk to people in meaningful ways.
And I feel now more than ever on the consumer side, they can spot and they can sniff out when a brand is not
Yeah,
really being authentic,
yeah,
right? And
absolutely,
so and so
absolutely.
trying to figure that out and make sure that you are, speaking from the heart, you are speaking in a language that people can relate with and understand, and that it's true and it's just not, changing your logo because
Yeah,
there's a certain holiday or anything like that coming up. Like, what are you doing beyond that, right?
yep. And it's the worst thing you can do,
Yeah.
right? Is trying to be authentic, trying to connect with people, and just failing miserably, right? And a lot of companies, had to pay the price for that, and brands, but and had to backtrack and rethink and restructure things in a whole different way,
Hmm.
So it's an easy formula, as I mentioned before. It's about humility, building the right teams, listening, and then bringing it to life, and having the right people to bring it to life within your organization. So,
Yeah.
and if you don't have it within your organization, outside of your organization, that's
Yeah.
fine too. But that's the formula.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you just laid out some really great advice, shared some really great insights with the audience. I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you think the next 9 to 12 months looks like from a multicultural marketing perspective, right? There's so much going on in the world right now, right? I'm just curious to if you can look into the future. I mean, do you think brands, you think we'll stop seeing less mistakes as we move forward here? I mean, what are your thoughts here, Edward?
Whenever I predict the future, I've been wrong. So, you know, I think, we're going to continue seeing mistakes. I mean, that's just a reality of where we are right now, and that's okay. You know,
Hmm.
but I just think, we're starting to see an elevation of people within the organization like we've never seen before. People of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different sexuality, even, we're seeing, a real change happening, within organizations. And the more this continues to happen and evolve, the less we're going to see mistakes happen. The better the marketing is going to get, the better the consumer experience is going to get, because you're now going to have a diversity of thought. You're going to have a different representation for your brand, that people can relate to, so 9 to 12 months is a lifetime nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. That's
It's
true.
moving. Things are moving very fast, as we can say, as we all are experiencing. But I'm really hopeful. I'm loving what I'm seeing now. From content to the commercials I'm seeing, to people being promoted to positions like never before that I've never
Mm.
thought I'd see. I'm excited about how things are changing, and they're changing in some instances very quickly, but in others it's extremely slow.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. And for me, it's all about sustainability, right?
Yes.
And building for the future, and how do we make sure that the changes that are happening, the evolution that's happening, is sustainable long term, because this
Yes.
isn't a quick fix, right?
Yes. Yes. But I think putting people who understand it and get it in positions to make the decisions for the whole organization, that's going to create sustainability. You
Hmm.
know, seeing people of color, women, now, being in positions where they're making the decisions that reverberates throughout the whole organization, that's true sustainability. So which is amazing.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I got one more question here before I think we bring Pearl back in to see if there are any additional questions. You know,
Yeah.
you mentioned the values earlier, and great advice that, hey, if you're out there, you're watching this, your company doesn't have values, that should be the first thing you do. Go back and stop and create those. Any other additional pieces of advice for anyone that's listening right now, that, hey, that wants to, that doesn't really think that their company's doing a good job from a multicultural marketing perspective, to say, okay, I'm going to go back into my organization tomorrow, and this is the first thing I'm going to do beyond the values?
I think, it's pulling in the key stakeholders and having very blunt conversations. People in middle management, or, lower on the totem pole, as you may say, they can't change organizations. It's pulling in the key stakeholders, the people that can completely change an organization, and having some blunt conversations.
Hmm.
Like I said, it's tough because there's a lot of fear there, right? But now more than ever, it's a time to be fearless, and to speak up, like never before. I feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel very empowered now to say, to have the, just to call things the way they are. And just, but the difference is not just bringing, what's happening to light, but what's going to be the solution. Be solution oriented,
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
addressing these issues. That's the key, and that's how you're going to get people listening throughout the
Gotcha.
organization and creating change.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, as you were speaking just now, we got in three more questions
Oh, okay.
from the audience.
It's a hot
So,
topic. I'll take them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So, what is your favorite marketing campaign that you've worked on?
My favorite marketing campaign I worked. I get this question a lot, and it's one of the toughest ones for me to answer overall. I mean, I would say, my favorite marketing campaign. Some of the best ones I've done, I were with Nike. I would have to say,
Mm,
because they have the ability to tap into, you know, street culture, tap into African American culture, in unique ways, and show true, authentic perspectives of the athletes to inspire people.
hmm.
But some of my best projects that I worked on, really the smaller ones, and if I'm, mention them, you probably won't even know what they are. They were smaller, they were hyper local, they were unique. I saw how it was impacting the community. Here in Chicago, we did something called a World Basketball Festival on the south side of the city. And I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And we brought out basketball courts and had these talks with kids, brought in these amazing athletes. The whole Olympic basketball team came and played, and Common put on a concert, a free concert. And, for me to see the community that I grew up in, and that's really gone through some tough times, just feeling a moment where they're lifted,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're together, and, It's not about shootings and crime or poverty. Was just all inspiration and love, and I just seeing those kids' faces, being able to talk to somebody like Scottie Pippen, talk to somebody like Derrick Rose, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because there are so many great marketing campaigns out there that you may not necessarily see on TV or
Yeah.
in a magazine, right? But what you just talked about has a direct impact on the community,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about. So I appreciate you sharing that particular one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next question. The past year, we've seen incredible innovation across all industries. Tell us about new and innovative ways your brand is connecting with consumers today.
I mean, really, for us, it's uh, becoming more omni-channel driven, right?
Hmm.
One thing that happened, on March 17th, when all of our clubs closed, was our national partnerships team put together an amazing campaign called United We Move. And, they were just 20-minute workouts, right, on Facebook Live. They were free, open to people. And, it was a big moment where we saw that, digital fitness, and we knew it was coming, it was on the horizon,
Hmm.
is the now. People want to work out and have access to working out any place, anytime, anywhere. You know, we have great market penetration across the U.S. In terms of it being a company. But if I'm in my hotel room and I want to get a workout in, but I don't want to go down to even the local gym downstairs, being able to get on my phone.
Yeah.
You can't really see it, this filter here. I don't have an invisible phone yet, but getting on my phone and getting quality workout, 20-minute workout, that's the evolution of our brand now. So we're leading with digital in a great way, and really becoming a omni-channel retailer. And people have never
Hmm.
thought about that in the fitness industry. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and this next question, I feel like you just kind of answered that with the way that you talked about how the brand pivoted. But what are ways your brand working to stand out in the eyes of the consumer? I feel like you just kind of
Yeah, I
answered that one,
mean,
right? Yeah.
uh, we're one of the few fitness brands, that can do national campaigns,
Hmm.
and we created such an accessible model to people, right? For $10 a month, you can get access to a premium gym and facility and
Hmm.
digital content to work out, and to connect with trainers for $10 a month. And like I said, we're going to places where our competition is not going, you
Hmm.
know, from urban locations, to rural locations, and treating those consumers the same, and but at the same time being very hyper connected from a hyper local standpoint. The gyms are part of the community. They're
Yeah.
anchors in the communities. From partnering with the local high schools, to partnering with the local Boys and Girls Club, which we have a national partnership with. So it's a lot of fun. Let's put it that way.
It's definitely keeping you busy. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's a great formula for our brand to stand out, to people. So, um, um, you know, so we have a it's not easy either,
Yeah.
but the fact that we're able to do the things that we're doing because of the size of our brand, and because of how connected we are and how hyper local we are, it's
Hmm.
it's easier than what our competition's having to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, you've made a commitment to go to where your consumers are, right?
Yeah,
Regardless of
yeah,
where they are. And if you're living by that commitment and focused on it, yeah, it can be amazing, and
Yeah.
the returns can be great, right? So that's awesome.
And as I mentioned before, inclusion is at the forefront of our brand's DNA. We
Hmm.
are the judgment-free zone. I know that seems like, a small part of what we are outside of the value proposition, but it's the most important part, is that we are truly the judgment-free zone. We welcome anybody in our doors. I've seen a 97-year-old man, working out and feeling comfortable within our walls. And I've seen 13-year-olds, and being able to do that and having that type of messaging is extremely important for us, and why was excited to join this brand and to be a part of it.
And I think like what you're saying there, you touch on a very interesting point. I want to sort of dive into that a little bit, right? You talked about judgment-free zone, values. You're excited to work for the brand. I think that's super important too, that, as someone who is in the workforce and looking to work at different organizations, right? That's important too, to, as a marketer, to make sure that, your values and beliefs align with where you're going to be at for your career.
Yeah. I mean, long gone are the days where you're lucky you should be here. That you're just here. If anything, the youth has changed that. And that's been the paradigm shift, is people want to work for organizations that embrace their values, and they have the option to leave now, and or create their own even. I've seen some people do and create amazing brands, so we're in a whole different ball game right now than you're lucky you're just here kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. All right. One last question we have here. Are you adjusting your marketing and digital transformation initiatives or investments over the next 2 to 3 years based on 2020?
2 to 3 years. Let's try next
yeah.
week. If anything, that this past year has taught us is we have to be extremely nimble, and I've never in my career been this close to planning to execution. I mean, we're making decisions and changing, our mix and how we're reaching people constantly,
Yeah.
and like I said, it's very close to execution. Things that we would have made a decision a year ago for, now we have to make that decision within a few weeks, because of what's happening in our society and with this pandemic. And so and how people are, changing, people are viewing content in a different way. People are on platforms in a different way, and it's happening extremely fast. I've never seen anything like this before.
But how do you balance that though, Edward? Right? Because as a marketer, you do have to have long-term goals, right? You do have to have something that you're aiming for the brand. But at the same time, to your point, you got to remain agile as well too, and making sure you have your ear to the street in terms of what's going on. So I know for me as a marketer on the B2B side, that's always something I'm constantly thinking about and try to balance it. And I'd be curious to hear from you, get your thoughts on how do you go about balancing that?
The way that you balance is you have your clear objectives, your strategy on how you're going to get there, but you have to be able to stop and change quickly. You have to create flexibility within your organization, so you can pivot and have the tweaks necessary to adjust to what's happening in the marketplace. So yes, you have your long-term goals, you're moving towards that, and you have a strategy of reaching that, but you also have to keep tweaking that along the way, keep evolving your organization, keep evolving your strategy, just forever having that mindset of evolution and being a growth planner. So.
Gotcha. All right. I see Pearl has
Yeah, we
popped
got
back
some
in.
company here. Hey, how's it going?
Mind if I join you?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure. We're just kicking it here. We're having a good
Yeah.
day.
Wow. I didn't realize that it was only $10 a month to join Planet Fitness.
Yes.
I can join
Shameless
20
plug.
something of your locations and still have some money for lunch.
That's right.
At the rate of what I was paying.
You just got to get rid of one of your channels. That's all.
Yeah, well, I did actually. I
You're
did when
good to
COVID
go.
hit, so I have some extra cash laying around.
Yeah.
And it's so great to hear that you're supporting so many good causes. So
Yeah.
I definitely prefer to support brands that are doing good with their profits.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Edward and Kerel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for being a great talk show host. Kerel has a different future ahead of him here, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Gotta get that podcast going.
That podcast money.
Yes. So
Brand Innovators will sponsor your podcasts.
Hey,
I may hold you to that, Pearl. I may hold you to that now.
I'm not the one who signs the checks though.
I want my commission. I got your first sponsorship, man. You know.
Lots of talk.
Yeah.
Well, we hope to have you both back on the BI stage soon.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Enjoy your weekend.
So thanks so much to Edward and Kerel for closing our day on multicultural marketing. It was a great day of speakers, and we are excited for all of our upcoming days on this topic. We hope you all join Brand Innovators next week on May 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for the D2C Marketing Summit. We will be joined by marketing leaders from the Clorox Company, Empire Today, Belk, BottleCap, Stringsmith, Bodega Brands, Goat Rodeo Capital, Ember Technologies, Eargo, Kimberly-Clark, Team Bespoke, and many more. Thank you for joining, everyone. We hope to see you again soon.